We are back with another episode of Investigating Innovation with the I2C. I'm your host, Madison Travis, and on today's Spark Spotlight, we'll be talking to Valentina Iscaro, mentor and entrepreneurial expert. We're going to be asking her about what has led her to become an entrepreneur and what advice she would give to fellow creators and innovators. Let's roll. Hey, Valentina, how are you doing?
I'm good. What about you, Madison?
Doing great. Just excited to have you in the Spark studio today, and we're going to dive into some advice you would give to entrepreneurs and kind of what your expertise is. So what exactly is your specialty, and what do you have your expertise in as far as mentorship goes?
So I would say that I can best assist and support entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs at the very beginning of their idea life cycle. Let's say in that phase that goes from having a very embryonic idea and start creating a minimum viable product. So all that phase during which entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial teams need to complete a feasibility assessment and evaluate the technological and organizational feasibility of the idea, the economic viability of the idea, and desirability for customers. That's definitely my expertise.
Right. There's a lot of kind of tough love in that stage too, of trying to explain, is this actually going to work too? And sometimes that's hard.
It's very complex.
Yes.
And it's, at least in my experience, it is one of the most challenging phase, even as a team, because you have a lot of, moments where you need to pivot and you need to change your idea. It's challenging as a team. And
it's hard because you're passionate about this, and sometimes you have all these great ideas, but as much as you want them to be, they're not going to work. They're not going to be viable in the stage that maybe you first perceived them. So sometimes that planning stage can be skipped over, and then it ends up in failure, and it's really a waste of your time ultimately. So.
Yeah, it's like that. Also because as an entrepreneur, you tend to be emotionally attached to your idea.
Yes,
and
for sure.
Even if it's obvious that will not work on the market because you have all the feedbacks telling you this is not going to work. But still, it's like your baby. So changing that, it's very complex.
It's a lot. What does your professional career look like? What has led you to this kind of stage of your life, I guess?
Yes. So my career has experienced many changes, steering moments, including moving from Italy to Huntsville.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. But I started in a completely different environment. After my master that is in business communication, I started as a consultant in a marketing company. And that was really fun because I was working with in the brand management section. So working with brand identity, brand image.
I love that stuff.
Was really, really good. But then after a couple of years, I realized that there was nothing more to learn and I wanted something different. And so, the entrepreneur inside me was pushing for something. Mm-hmm. And so I established my first company. So I was 26 and it was a digital communication company. The name was Chromosome 6 because according to the science or fantasy science, I guess, the sixth chromosome is the one in charge for creativity and innovation in our mind.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's cool.
And I learned a lot from that. I failed. So, and I think that was really important for me.
I was going to say, I think that's a part of the journey sometimes. You have to have those moments.
Yes, and I really think that we need to normalize failure for entrepreneurs.
For sure.
So I failed and I learned a lot. And I decided after a couple of years to go back to school and learn more about entrepreneurship. Yep. So I started my Ph.D. And during my Ph.D., I developed a platform to support aspiring entrepreneurs exactly in that phase, from the embryonic idea to the minimum viable product. And I tested the platform, I think, for 4 years in simulation by role play in the university with more than 300 students, just to improve and perfection that process that we were developing. And after that, I realized that teaching was my passion. So I started teaching in Italy, and then I'm teaching here. I am a professor of entrepreneurship and the coordinator of the entrepreneurship program at Alabama A&M University. But I'm still an entrepreneur, so I am in the process of let's say improving that software and including artificial intelligence and machine learning mechanisms inside. Yes. And I'm still in that phase because we changed a lot. So we are in the process of creating a minimum viable product. Okay. But it's a little complex and very expensive. Right. Yes. So we are in the phase of trying to find investors.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are heading in the direction with the AI and the machine learning algorithms and all of that because that people are looking for convenience in all of their products. Like at the end of the day, I think that's been really important. And I'm really glad that UH has started offering entrepreneurship classes too, because I've decided that's my minor. And just because I think working here is kind of
definitely.
Yes, I would say put that in me. But we've learned a lot about kind of what people are looking for and how you have to navigate your market. And all. There's so many factors to it that I think oftentimes get overlooked. And we've kind of talked about how, I'm pretty sure we had some sort of statistic that 60% of people just fail to write their business plan and just move forward and just hope for the best. And I
think it's even higher than that.
Yeah, and she was I think that was from 2013, so I'm sure it is higher than that. And she was kind of talking about how important it is to really have all those analysis, especially in the early stage and the feasibility, all this kind of stuff. But I definitely loved the point you made about normalizing failure, because
that's very important. I failed. I'm still here, so
life continues.
I still have a career that I love and is improving. So, and I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm trying again. So normalizing failure is important.
And also, I don't think that entrepreneurship lifestyle ever fades, no matter what career path you take. Especially if you start, even at 26, that kind of keeps on going, for you. But how long have you been? I guess, since 26, but would you say those ideas kind of came up any earlier in life? Did you ever think that you were going to be any sort of entrepreneur, or did you?
No, definitely.
Really? No. Yeah. I see there's some people who are I knew from, the get-go that I was going to create something. Then there's people who just saw a problem and are I just kind of want to address it and fix it.
No, I only knew that I was not made for a corporate job. And that was clear for me since the very beginning, just because is the type of routine is not the routine that fits my personality.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to be yet, but I was sure that a corporate job was not in my destiny.
Yes, I totally get that. I think this job has spoiled me slightly of kind of having the freedom to learn and just grow and explore all these different things. So with graduation approaching, I'm trying to figure out what in the world is going to happen.
When are you graduating?
In May.
It's
next
close.
Year. Yeah, I try to just avoid it and just keep enjoying right now. But yeah, so after all your experience and all this stuff, what would you say your one solid piece of advice is for entrepreneurs?
I would definitely say that entrepreneurs need to very carefully select their team members, and this is what I learned from my failure. Because when I established my company, my first idea I was working on, it was with a college friend, and we worked perfectly as friends. But when we established our company, we had completely different ideas about everything: how to manage employees, how to manage customers, partnership, how to manage the budget, how to organize the shares of the company. And I reached the point that in the morning I was not happy anymore to go to work, and I realized this is not what I want. So my advice is definitely to select perfectly your team members, because even if you have a failing idea, if your team works, that failure will not definitely break the team, and you can still try another time.
Yes.
But if you have a team that does not work, if you have a brilliant idea, that idea, in my opinion, is doomed to be to fail in the market, because the team is everything. And with my second attempt, I am now with my software working with the person who was my advisor during my doctorate.
Oh, cool.
And maybe it's because we started working as colleagues. And then we turn friends, but that's the perfect person. So we complement each other. She has skills that I do not have, and vice versa. She is, so she's very good in all the elements that in my personality are weaknesses, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's definitely my advice. Select your team.
I think that's a super important aspect to address, because a lot of times you go after the people that are convenient, or people that are around you in the moment, rather than truly analyzing who you're adding to this what could be a really huge part of your life one day. I mean, it could turn into something way bigger than you ever thought it could be. I think that's something I haven't really heard a lot before, but that's super essential for entrepreneurs to.
But it is, because especially at the beginning, exactly like you said, you tend to, if you are in that moment of your life, when you want to establish your company, you want to jump into entrepreneurship, and you start looking around you, and people who are available in that moment just become your partners. And even if you are friends, I'm not saying that I was wrong and he was right or vice versa.
No.
Just opposite opinion.
Yeah.
And so we continue to be friends, but as partners, we did not work at all.
Yes.
So that
it's important to know, like you said, the strengths and weaknesses of the people that you are considering to be your teammates.
Yes.
You have to know exactly who those kind of people are, especially in the business setting.
And also, if I can add something, Madison, is to define at the very beginning, also with your teammates, the key elements of the company. For example, who is going to be the CEO and who is going to be the managing director? Is this going to be 50-50, or how much is a share? How much will be a share in a year? What is the exit strategy? If you are planning to exit the company, how are we monetizing that exit? So it's very important to define at the beginning those options.
And a lot of times those things become very overwhelming, and I feel like that's why many entrepreneurs skip over that step, because it seems like so much and stuff that is almost hard to comprehend at the beginning. But I think it's important, if you establish those at the beginning, you'll stick to those, and they can always change. You can always update things, but you can't move forward with no foundation. So, well, that's your advice. What is some advice that you have received that has really impacted your entrepreneurial journey?
I would say that the advice that changed my perspective was that I must risk something for my ideas in order to ask other people to risk something for my idea. Right. So and doesn't mean only money, but mainly money.
Yes, yeah.
So if you are not willing to risk something for your idea, nobody will risk. Nobody will bet on your idea if you are not willing to risk.
Well, because if you're sitting there comfortable, they're like, why should I put whatever I have, the comfort that I have, at risk for something that you're not even willing to risk it for?
And it's difficult because you if you are an entrepreneur, there will be different moments of your life. So there are some moments when it's easier to risk, just because if you fail, it's going to impact on your personal life. But after a while, if you fail, it's going to impact other people, your family. So to risk, it's more complicated.
Definitely.
But if you want to be a credible entrepreneur, you need to risk something.
Yes.
And that was the best advice that I received, because the risk is complicated.
For sure.
It's always easier to say, I will let somebody else to risk.
Yes, yeah, especially someone if they have more backup, more prestige, more, they're like, they can handle that.
They can handle that. They will probably have more experience. They will evaluate my idea better. They will know better than me if my likelihood to succeed.
Yes.
But definitely doesn't work, because you will never find people willing to invest in your idea if you are not risking something.
For sure.
More than your time.
Yes, yeah, right. More than time and creativity.
Exactly.
I'm so glad that you were able to come in today. I think it really showed the importance of mentorship to entrepreneurs and advisors, and just having someone that is more knowledgeable about that process and things like that, because it can become very overwhelming. You're very concerned about, fine-tuning this idea that you have. You need someone alongside you to kind of help you through that process to get that foundation built, because even though failure is normal, if you have no foundation, you're doomed to fail, even if your idea is great. So you've got to have that foundation. So glad you got to come in.
Thank you.
It was great getting to talk to you. Hopefully we'll have you back in the studio sometime soon. But thank you, Valentina. It was so nice.
Thank you, Madison. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And that concludes today's Spark Spotlight. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned a little more about the foundations that need to be built when you're beginning your entrepreneurial journey. Be on the lookout for who I'm going to spotlight next. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on all of our socials at I2C on Instagram and Invention to Innovation Center on Facebook. Onward and upward.